Welcome back to Reformed Thinking, everyone. Today, we're getting right to the heart of it. I mean, the absolute core of our faith. We're asking a huge question. Who is ultimately responsible for our salvation? And believe me, the answer? Well, it changes everything.
So here it is, the big question. Who is the decisive cause of our salvation? Is it God in His sovereign power, or is it us making a choice out of our own free will? How you answer this question is going to shape everything. How you worship, how you pray, how you live out your faith day to day.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we've got to look at humanity's spiritual state. Then, we'll put two competing views of grace side by side. After that, we'll dig into 4 decisive actions God takes, figure out the source of faith and repentance, and then wrap it all up with the ultimate purpose of God's grace.
Okay, first things first. Before we can even begin to talk about salvation, we have to get a handle on what we're being saved from, right? And the Bible gives a pretty stark diagnosis of our spiritual condition without God's intervention.
So when the Apostle Paul writes to the church in Ephesus, he doesn't mince words. He doesn't say we're spiritually sick or maybe just a little weak or that we need a bit of helping hand. Nope. He says we are dead in our trespasses. Now, what does that actually mean? Because that one word dead, it is absolutely crucial. Everything else hinges on it.
I mean, think about it. It's the only logical conclusion, isn't it? If you're spiritually dead, you're completely helpless. You can't start your own rescue mission. You can't contribute, not even 0.001% to your own spiritual resurrection. It's like expecting a corpse to decide to get up and walk. It's just not possible.
So this idea of total spiritual inability, it's a major fork in the road. It has led to 2 very different ways of understanding how God's grace actually works. The big question becomes, how does grace interact with someone who is spiritually dead? And let me tell you, the answers couldn't be more different.
And here are those 2 main answers laid out for us. On one hand, you've got the Arminian view. This says that grace kind of restores our free will. It makes it possible for us to choose or reject salvation. The final call? That's on us. But then you have the Reformed view. This sees God's grace as decisively effective. It doesn't just open a door, it actually carries you through it. It overcomes our resistance, brings about a total spiritual resurrection, and makes God the one decisive cause of salvation.
Okay, so let's get back to the Bible. Let's look at Ephesians chapter 2 and see how Paul himself talks about God's saving work. You'll notice he uses some incredibly powerful, active, and decisive language here.
Notice, Paul doesn't say God tried to save us or that he made salvation possible. No, he uses these 4 knockout verbs to describe what God actually did. When we were dead, he made us alive. He saved us, he raised us, and he seated us with Christ. These aren't maybes or possibilities. They're declarations of a completed divine action.
So you see, the really crucial point here is the language. Paul is describing a complete, total spiritual resurrection. This isn't some partial awakening where the final decision is still up in the air. No, this is God decisively bringing someone from death to life, from a state of judgment to a permanent home with Him in heaven. It's a done deal.
All right, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, but what about our part? What about faith? What about repentance? Surely that's what we bring to the table, right? That's a fair question. Let's see what the Bible actually says about it.
So yeah, where do faith and repentance come from? Well, the Bible is surprisingly consistent on this. It describes them not as something we manage to conjure up from our own dead hearts, but as gifts, straight from God. Ephesians 2:8 is famous for this. By grace you have been saved through faith. It is the gift of God. Philippians says it's been granted to us to believe, and 2 Timothy talks about God granting repentance. See the pattern? These aren't human achievements, they're divine gifts.
And this brings us full circle, right back to where we started. What can a dead person contribute to their own resurrection? Yeah, absolutely nothing. So, if even the faith we have is itself a gift, then what's our contribution? It's zero, zilch. Salvation, from beginning to end, is 100% a work of God's grace.
Okay, let's land the plane here with our final point. If God is the one doing all the heavy lifting from start to finish, then why? Why does He choose to save people in this decisive, sovereign way? What's the ultimate point of it all?
Well, according to Ephesians, the purpose is, it's all about God. He does it to put the immeasurable riches of His grace on display for all of eternity. He does it so there's no confusion, so it's crystal clear that we are His workmanship, not the product of our own striving. And the incredible byproduct for us?
an eternally increasing happiness as we get to explore those riches forever. How amazing is that?
And this really gets to the core of it. Why is salvation not a result of works? Paul gives the reason right there, so that no one may boast. Think about it. If we contribute absolutely nothing, not even the final yes, then all the glory, every last bit of it, goes to God. There is simply no room for human pride in the story of salvation.
So I want to leave you with this to think about. If our faith is truly a gift and not ultimately our own contribution, how does that change things? How does it transform the way we worship? How does it affect our prayers for those who are lost? And what does it do for our confidence in God's power to save? Something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining us on Reformed Thinking.